Okay, so today we're on the back side of our 4.4 notes, and we want to look at, again, trinomials. But yesterday when we talked about factoring trinomials, there were a few people who remember some shortcut that a teacher had taught you at some point. And so you didn't want to do that whole X method because you're like, well, can't I just use the shortcut? And I said, well, please don't, okay, because I wanted you to learn the process of that X method. Well, today's the reason why. If we take a look at, say, number 7 here. If we take a look at number 7, can I factor out a GCF? Because again, that should always be step 1. Look for a GCF. Can I factor out a GCF? No, I cannot. So then I'm stuck doing the X method. Oops. So I have a trinomial. I need to take my A value times my C value. So A times C is 2 times 6, 12. My B value is 7. So I'm looking for, just like yesterday, what are two numbers that multiply to 12 but add to 7? 4 and 3, 3 and 4, doesn't matter which way you write it. Again, just like yesterday, we take those values to rewrite our middle term. So 2x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 6. Okay? Well, now, again, just like yesterday, we have 4 terms, so we can factor by grouping. And in my first group, it looks like I can factor out a 2x, leaving me with x plus 2. In my second group, I can factor out a positive 3, again leaving me with x plus 2. And so now I have a common binomial factor of x plus 2 that I can factor out. That gives us our answer. That is a very different answer than those of you yesterday who tried to use a shortcut, because in this trinomial, you can't use the shortcut. So any of you who knew the shortcut or think you know the shortcut, you can't use it on this one because the shortcut says that these two numbers will be in our answer. Well, and they're obviously not. Okay? So I'm not going to tell you the shortcut if you don't already know it. I'll tell you eventually, because eventually I'd like you to use it. It saves a lot of time. Okay? But for right now, just remember, those of you who think you know the shortcut or do know the shortcut and want to use it, you can only use the shortcut when your A value is a positive 1. That is the only time that shortcut applies. In this class, our A value will not always be a positive 1. Okay? So make sure that you understand how to do this X method and do it well. All right? Because this will work on all trinomials that can be factored. Okay? If a trinomial can be factored, you can do it using the X method. So let's take a look at, I believe it's number 12. Yeah, number 12. That's a good one. Because this one, we're going to have to deal with some larger numbers. Okay? So always look for a GCF first. And in this one, can we pull anything out for our GCF? No, we can't. Okay, so we're going to have to just go straight into using the X method. I would like you and the people around you, you can discuss it with the people around you, but I would like you guys to work this problem. Go. Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second. Okay, because I'm seeing a lot of people who are kind of getting stuck. Okay? A lot of people getting stuck. Now, first things first, and I'm going to do this off to the side here. Multiplication charts are a great thing. Okay? Because, yes, they give you answers, but also because it gives you practice. You only have to look up 3 times 6 so many times before you know what it is. Okay? Just by looking it up. So that's great. Some of you might complain that, well, your multiplication chart only goes to 12. Well, I can't give you a multiplication chart that's going to show you every single multiplication problem you're ever going to do. Okay? You should technically only have a multiplication chart 10 by 10. Because you don't need a multiplication chart any bigger than that. Because you are going to take, what are our numbers? 6 and 28. You're going to take 28, if I could write here, 28 times 6. You all need to know how to do this by hand. Okay? Now I say you need to know. Am I going to test you on that? No. But it's a life skill, folks. All right? It's a life skill. If you're using one of my multiplication charts, you need to know how to do this because you can now look up 8 times 6 if you don't know it already. If you look it up on my multiplication chart, you find out it's 48. Now you can look up 6 times 2 if you don't know it already. Well, we know it's 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. You've got to know how to multiply by hand. Some of you, I don't think, have done that since probably 3rd grade. Okay? But we need to know how to do that. Okay? We need to know how to do that. So we have 28 times 6. And that 28 times 6 is 168. But when we're doing the x method here, we don't want to use 168. 128, I forget what I said already. 168. It's negative 168. So some of you who are struggling trying to find the right combination, maybe that's why. You forgot that if it's negative, what do you know about your two numbers? One has to be positive, one has to be negative, right? So I'm going to say one's negative, the other one's going to be positive. I don't know which is which. My middle number I'm looking for is 13. My two numbers need to add up to 13. Now, something I do not want you to do. Once you know this information, stop just staring at your calculator and punching buttons. That's what I saw many of you doing. A few of you were able to punch the right buttons immediately and therefore knew the answer. Some of you spent the whole time punching buttons, never finding the right answer. What you didn't do was actually write anything down. You just said, okay, what's 6 times this? Nope, that didn't work. What's 8 times this? Nope, that didn't work. What? You know, punching buttons doesn't always help you think through a problem. You're just punching buttons, hoping the right answer shows up. Okay? So let's stop, let's slow down, let's think through the problem. Okay? First thing I would do is I would try to factor negative 168. There's a really easy way to factor that. What are the two numbers we multiplied to get there? So 6 times 28 must give us 168. If we're going to add them together to be a positive number, which one of these two has to be negative then? The smaller one, the 6. So negative 6, positive 28. Does that work? If I add them together, do I get 13? No, it doesn't. So, okay, those don't work. But now we have a starting point to find the rest of our possibilities. Remember I talked about this the other day. Factor 6. 6 factors into what? 3 and 2, 2 times 3, or whatever. Okay. And now we need to factor 28. 7 times 4. Okay. So now we have this. Well, that alone gives us some other possibilities. For example, we could say 2 times 21 times 4 is 84. But is that going to get us anywhere, 84 and 2? Absolutely not. That's far too crazy. Okay, so I wouldn't do that. But you know what? What about 3 times 7, which is 21, and 2 times 4, which is 8. Again, to add them together, 8 has to be negative. 21 and negative 8, does that give me 13? Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So if you write, now this one, our answer came pretty quickly, but if you write down your possibilities, you can use these numbers to try different combinations. And then you can start punching some buttons. But make sure you write down which combinations you've tried. That way you have a list of what you've tried. And then if you get down to 15 possibilities and none of them work, now you have an argument to say, Mr. Bobier, this one can't be factored. Rather than just trying a few of them on your calculator and going, I can't figure it out, so I must not be able to do it. All right, Mr. Bobier, I have a question. Okay, you've got to try all the combinations you can. Okay, and write down the ones you've tried. Okay, so this combination does actually work. Negative 8, positive 21. So now that we know the proper combination, now that everybody knows the proper combination, I'll give you guys another minute to finish the problem. Go. So what we should be doing here is using these two numbers to break apart our middle term. So 6x squared minus 8x plus 21x minus 28. Then we group the first two terms together and the second two terms together. Because I put the negative number first, then I automatically end up with the positive in between. I don't have to worry about doing the plus and negative stuff. So in my first group, what can I factor out? You're right, 2x. 3x minus what then? 4. Let's try this again. In my second group, what can I factor out? A 7. You're right, a 7. So I'm left with, again, 3x minus 4. I can now factor out that common binomial. So I'm left with 2x plus 7. And there's our factored answer. Questions on 12? Okay, let's take a look at one more. Let's say, let's go ahead and say number 10. Again, you and the people around you, please consult with each other. Please factor number 10 completely.